When Mr. Duncan Gillies returned from Scotland in 1865, he resumed the publication of the Narragansett Times, then the Narragansett Times and South County Advertiser, on the second floor of the Armstrong Building, opposite the Baptist Church, now occupied by an auto showroom. Mr. Gillies evidently found the publishing of the Times a financial success. He soon began looking for larger quarters for the paper, combined with a much-needed hall for public meetings and rooms for several types of business under one roof. Somewhat like a vision of our shopping centers of today, the only public meeting place in town of any size was the Peacedale Hall, but built in 1858 on the third floor of what is now the Peacedale Office Building. In the summer of 1871, Mr. Gillies purchased a large lot at the corner of Main and Columbia Street, where the Times office now stands, from Mr. Nathaniel Armstrong. He began the construction of a publishing office, several stores, and an assembly hall, to be called Columbia Hall. Columbia Corner and Columbia Street take the name from this building, as prior to that time there had been known under various names, among them Lewis or Armstrong Corner. The building was completed during the fall and winter of 1871 through 72, and dedicated on April 28, 1872. With elaborate exercises, speeches by prominent citizens, local entertainment, dancing, and music by the Roger Williams Band, it faced 100 feet of on Columbia Street, entrance to the publishing office, which occupied the center of and rear of the first floor, was on the southeast corner. The New York clothing store, a hardware store operated by Thomas Connor, the dental office of Dr. Thomas Bell, and a tailor shop of a Mr. Blumenthal took up the front and remainder. On the second floor, entered from the center of the building on Main Street, was a large hall where public meetings, entertainments, and dances could be held. In this hall, and the first sessions of the South Kingstown High School were conducted by Captain George N. Kenyon, Reverend George W. Fisher, and Mr. James Waters of Narragansett. Herbert Miller of Norwich had a dancing school here, and the indoor displays in connection with the first agricultural fairs held in South County were in this hall in 1874 and 1875. Many public meetings, which finally succeeded in stirring up local interest for the building of the Narragansett Pier Railroad, took place here in the early 70s. In the rear was a small hall reserved as a meeting place for the newly formed Hope Lodge of Masons, 1867, which had been meeting in a small hall on High Street. About 2 a.m. on the morning of April 10, 1880, a fire was discovered in the basement of the building by Mr. Henry Tabor of Kingstown, who happened to be driving a late arrival by train at Kingston Depot to his home in Narragansett Pier. Communications were slow in those days, but word was finally gotten to the mill at Peacedale, and the members of the Peacedale Fire Company arose by vigorous ringing of the mill bell, arrived at the scene of the fire in about half an hour after pulling by hand their hand-engine through deep mud on Columbia Street. By this time, the hall building was a mass of flames, and bowling alley run by the Sweet Brothers of Peacedale, and the carriage shop of Woods and Curtis, which stood on the site of the present movie theater and nearby tenement block, were already on fire. An attempt to pump from a cistern on the property was useless, but the firemen did succeed in saving the residence of Paul Woods, a building still standing. Also destroyed was a small building on Main Street where Green Armstrong had a grocery store, and the residence and marble shop of Richard Harrell was pulled down during this fire to save the home of Nathaniel Armstrong. Next morning, Columbia Corner was a scene of desolation, hall, office, and stores, and all their contents completely destroyed, as well as the bowling alley, Woods and Curtis carriage shop, Armstrong's grocery store, and Harrell residence and shop, all in a mass of ruins. Practically all were a total loss, and very little insurance was carried by any of the people involved. The Times firm did carry about $6,000 in insurance against the building, which had cost about $12,000 to build. the Times did not miss a single copy. For a short time it was printed in Providence, later at the pier, and by the summer of 1882 the present Times office had been built on the same location and publishing started there. Woods and Curtis attempted to rebuild, but did not finish, and the land was sold to Mr. Silas Wright, who 2 years after the fire built Wright's Hall, later to be known as the Wakefield Opera House, Communities Theater, and now the Campus Cinema. Opened as a hall and theater on November 4th, 1882, the original building was burned to the ground in a spectacular fire on the morning of May 9th, 1918, but rebuilt and reopened on the same site in 1920. In the case of such disasters, however, some good may, and usually does, evolve. In July 1880, the Peacedale Fire Company voted to build a steam fire engine, which, with a generous assist from the Peacedale Manufacturing & Co., arrived in Peacedale as a latest model of an Muskeg steamer on the morning of October 1st, 1881. With it came a change of name to the Narragansett Steam and Fire Engine Company, and many years of faithful service to this community. Shortly thereafter, in June 1883, came the establishment of the Union Fire District and the organization of another much-needed fire company in the Wakefield area.